Hey, friends, we are back with another episode of One Great Question, and I am incredibly excited because me and Mr. Matt Chenard don't get a terrible amount of time together. And we were kind of joking about before we got started here. It's like, isn't this a funny thing that we do in the year 2026? It's like, I bet you if we lived in the same place and we're geographically close, we're probably friends. And hey, so because we live in different parts of the country, you know what we should do? We should have a great conversation and then record it for strangers. And then that's what we call a podcast now. So, welcome to that. And Matt, thanks for being on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Carl. And podcasts are probably one of my favorite ways to intake information, just people having a conversation. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you. And hopefully it's a
Yeah.
benefit to your listeners.
Yeah. And at this point, sorry, people listening and or watching, it's a side benefit. Me and Matt just kind of wanted to hang out,
Yeah.
and here we go. We got to do that, with you guys along for the ride. So, Matt, one of the things that we've been doing this season in the podcast is we kind of have these three questions. And so the conversation can go anywhere. But one of the things that I do in my work is I talk to leaders and I try to have almost like a pattern interrupt. And I know you're big on social, and so that's a thing in social media world, but I try and do it almost in their thinking because these are grown-ups, right? They have like serious jobs and they do serious work, serious money at play. And then I come in, I say, hey, I'm going to say maybe the weirdest thing a consultant or a coach may have said to you in the last 10 years, which is, I'm on a rescue mission for your inner 8-year-old. And they're like, yep, you're right. That's as weird as you promised it would be. And then my thesis around this is I think if we could get powerful people to get more curious, like the world would be a much funner place. It would be a lot safer place. It would be a lot more engaging place. And so the first question I would like to ask a serious man like Matt Chenard, who owns a big business and has a large following and has a great consulting and coaching space as well, is what would the 8-year-old version of Matt be really excited about that is happening in current day Matt's life? Like, what would they be wowed about or impressed, proud? You could use those words, but I'm a little bit more playful with this. Like, what would they be like stoked about in your world?
Yeah, I like that question. I think it would be two things. So I just updated my logo for my program, which is called Man on the Mission, which will be around my personal brand too. It's this compass with a mountain in the middle. And the reason that would excite 8-year-old Matt is I remember driving through the Canadian Rockies for the first time in my life. I must have been 8 or something close to that. And just seeing these big, jagged rocks coming out of the earth. Like, what is this? And looking out the window and thinking, these are beautiful. These are amazing. And then even to this day, whenever we drive to Banff area, for those who are familiar, I keep looking. It's like, Jaleesa, check this mountain out. That Jaleesa is my wife. Jaleesa, check this mountain out. She's like, yep, yep. She's very patient. So, yes, Matt, we've seen these before. And so, just tying that back to today, I made that my logo because I work with Christian men in their life and business to help them become more disciplined so that they can have stronger marriages, so they can get in great physical shape, scale their business while gaining back time, be great, steadfast fathers, and deepen their relationship with the Lord. And the mechanism to that is having this mission. And this is good timing. I'm not sure if you watched that video that was going viral. I know you said you're not on Instagram too much, but this penguin walking towards a mountain. Did you see that
Uh-uh.
video?
Uh-uh.
It just went uber viral. It's this penguin that went off the path of these other penguins that were going to food, were going to the water, and it just kept turning towards this mountain way off in the distance. And this is the mindset that I had with my logo is we need a mission. We need something to continue to pursue and have a purpose so that we don't fall into complacency, that we don't get off mission. And taking all that in and saying, okay, when I was 8 years old, this picture of the mountain, now it's part of my brand.
Hmm.
And it's a part of a mechanism in which I help people and how to use their God-given gifts, talents, time, money, energy, resources, and stories. And then also the side part of that for my 8-year-old self would be that I'm in a vocation right now where I get to experiment and ideate and play every single day, like
Yeah.
using things like Claude Code to build a whole dashboard in a week that would have taken months and months before and cost $400,000, 10 hours of my time, and it's there. So I think that's what my 8-year-old self would be. Yeah, it would be pretty interesting to him.
Yeah, yeah. And, isn't it the stunning thing that all of that is wrapped around this idea of possibility? It's the idea of like, what could happen if I imagine the bigger quest, as
Yeah.
opposed to, oh, well, what should happen because I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things in our work that we talk a lot about is, and I don't know that I'd done this before, but about 5 years ago, Jeff Goins, who's on the previous season of the podcast, who is a fantastic writer, he just asked me flat out, he's like, hold on, so you've built your whole company around a word called curiosity. And then you say the whole goal is to ask better questions. And he's like, so what's the root of the word question? And I was like, oh, you mean like in Latin? He's like, no, think like an 8-year-old. What's the root in the word question? And I was like, poor Jeff still has to keep on coaching me. He's like, just start knocking letters off until you get to a different word. And I was like, okay, take off the N, questio. That's not a word. Quest. Oh, so the root of the word question is quest. And we then had one of my favorite lunches I've ever had with anybody where we go, oh, because my intention is people aren't asking good questions anymore. It's like we're living in the death of nuance and like really great conversation because we just have stopped asking bigger and better questions, mostly because we've decided to draw lines in the sand and go, I'm for this or against that. And like, as opposed to, I don't know, let's ask a new question. And I think that comes back to your mountain is going, oh, we think for all people, we've stopped going on bigger quests because we're asking smaller questions. And then it just becomes a cyclical thing. We don't ask big questions because there's not big purpose or big hope or a big mission. And so because the quests get smaller, the questions get smaller. And then when the questions get smaller, the quests get even smaller. And it's just this cyclical thing. And so, the next thing is, when's the last time you asked or were asked a great question that you feel like kind of changed things?
I like that. Because as you're talking, it made me think with that mountain analogy, you're pursuing that mountain. And when you reach the peak of that mountain, whatever that is in your life, you enjoy the peak, you enjoy the summit, but you're also looking at the mountain in the corner of your eye, like what's behind that mountain, what's on the top of that mountain. And then we start to realize that the actual fulfillment and joy is not on the peak itself. Yes, that is part of it, but it's the journey you took to get to that peak. That's the actual fulfillment and joy filling part. And I talked about this on a reel yesterday is my favorite books of the Bible is Ecclesiastes. And this whole idea of everything is hevel. It's a vapor here today, gone tomorrow. And you can't find full joy in these things.
Mm-hmm.
Good conversation, drink, food, work, wisdom, pleasures, but you can enjoy them for what they are. So enjoying the journey for what it is and knowing that the ups and downs is the part of the most beneficial part of going on a journey to that new mountain, that new quest, as you mentioned, and not to skip over that part because that's the refining moments that actually make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear, Matt, more about, kind of what were those defining moments. So it sounds like, a large part of your history was or is in Canada. So for those of us who may not follow you as intently as we should on social, maybe you can give us a rundown on, kind of Matt's story, origin space, and where you find yourself today.
Yeah, I would say that we're really well known for hockey, but I guess after the Olympics, you guys are a little bit more well known.
I'm very sorry. As a South African, I was just cheering for a good game. Well, I'm now a naturalized citizen, so, wave the American flag, but also like, America, we like to have a good thing, and then we kind of like to spoil a good thing. You're like, oh, God, we're so close to doing this so well, and it was going to be a lovely story. And then you're like, well, we're gonna do that. Okay, got it. So, but a fun match, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah.
Like that was a fun time.
Yeah. So being from Canada, grew up playing hockey. Most people do here from the age of 5 to 21. And the question of what you want to do when you grow up was kind of riddled. My parents never pressured me. in any
Mhm.
way, shape, or form. But that question's always asked, "Hey, what do you when you grow up?" It's like, I don't know. I have no clue. So I played hockey competitively, and then I quote unquote retired. I had 7 concussions, so I figured I should have the ability to have a good conversation with my wife in the future.
Yeah.
And but that was always in the back of my mind. What am I going to do for work? I went to college, did some biblical studies, didn't get anything there. Went to trades work, did some electrical work, did some construction work. Hurt my back really bad when I was lifting with my ego because I wanted to be competitive in CrossFit. That had become my new competitive lane
Yeah.
after hockey. Hurt my back. And what I would say is, I talk about this. This is my verbiage I use a lot. Is it would as an idol in my life. I was pursuing this thing. I was putting my ultimate, my hope, my security in this mechanism. Hurt myself. Okay, well, I can't work anymore in construction. So I got my training certificate. At the same time, we were newly married in 2012. My wife was going through an eating disorder, exercise addiction, like fairly severe one, and talking about that word idol. So we've talked about this before. She had this like pursuit of achievement and control when things were stressful. So that's going on. I'm over working out. I become a personal trainer. I'm really enjoying it because I always enjoyed training for hockey, and I found a passion for that, training people, making a whopping $900 to $1,500 a month at the time, but really enjoying it. My wife going through school. And then I partnered up on a gym. We co founded what was then CrossFit Cameras. And I realized you can actually be an entrepreneur as a vocation. You can create things, you can build things that people can enjoy and can solve problems for them. So over time, I shifted my focus to less of the facilitation of training and more realizing I enjoy creating businesses, creating teams, building things that were in my mind that people can now use, touch, and feel, and realizing this is actually a career, quote unquote, career path. And I was all through that process of doing that myself. And 2020 hit. Everyone knows what happened in 2020 here in Alberta. It was really difficult. All in all, a gym we were paying rent on, we couldn't use for 7 months total. We had to close 5 times. My wife lost her 9-year nursing job, lost the ability for we lost all our life savings, went into big debt. All in all, I did the math. It was 1.2 million. We ended up losing, along with her job and any kind of maternity leave for our future kiddo. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, this idol thing, I had become prideful in my ability to problem solve. And in the back of my head, there was always this thought. I was like, why do athletes give glory to God? But not in like this aggressive tone in my mind, but just actually a curious question. Why? Why do we? Like if I'm doing the work, if I'm problem solving, why do they do this? And then during that period of 2020 to 2023, there was a refining moment in this process of realizing, oh, I'm not actually in as much control as I think I am. And it's more important that I have the ability to handle these stressors and take action in a direction I think I should go rather than saying I can control the outcome. Because in the Lord's Prayer, it's daily bread, thanking Him for daily bread. Well, daily bread, in essence, is the farmer had to take the wheat, that someone had to package it up to the grocery store. So my gifts, my abilities as an entrepreneur, I didn't create them. I'm simply stewarding them. And to have that knowledge, that almost epiphany moment of, oh, I can have success. I can pursue things, but I was becoming egotistical and prideful in my ability to problem solve and build things and thinking that I was doing it and not realizing and pointing back to actually God gave me gifts and talents. And this is a wake up moment for me to be, I'm still going to pursue excellence. I'm still going to build. I'm still going to try the best I can to be the best person I can be, but I'm going to hold it with open hands and taking this all these refining moments of my hurting my back, losing all this money, my wife going through what she did and realizing at the core, all these good gifts are from God. But it's when we make them an ultimate thing in our life that it becomes dangerous. An idol is something, a good thing that you make an ultimate thing. So when I made my career, my ability as an entrepreneur an ultimate, my wife made her fitness an ultimate. I made my fitness an ultimate. It became misordered. And we are to love Lord our God with all our hearts, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourself, closest neighbor being our family. And I had this all out of whack. And my wife did early on too. So now that's really what I'm helping through all this process. That's what I'm helping entrepreneurs do, Christian men do, is reorder their passions, reorder their loves, so that when they pursue something, they can pursue it with excellence, but they're not vulnerable to losing who they are. Because you mentioned people listening to this are high level entrepreneurs in the marketplace in some way, shape, form. If you are successful in your business, what if you lose that? Who are you? Can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, if I lose this thing, I'm going to show up as Matt, the father, Matt, the husband, Matt, the person stewarding his fitness the same way tomorrow? If not, like, you can grieve these things. I'm not saying you can't grieve or have emotions, but if you can't confidently say you're going to be the same person tomorrow, if you lose this thing, you might have something that's become an ultimate in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and so dangerous, right? Because, like you said, control is an illusion. And so, if you give that other thing control over you, then the illusion is almost like a dialogue now. Oh, I think you're the thing that will help keep me safe. And now I'm going to give all of my effort and energy, time and attention towards you. And then what happens when that thing fails me? In our work at Curiosity, we talk about this with leaders of your idea cannot be your identity. And so whether it's the idea of being a CrossFit coach or being a consultant, or even to the point of tell them, hey, we're going to move in between professional because your brain doesn't know the difference. So my job as your executive coach is to help your brain thrive in both spaces. And, if your first adjective is husband or dad or entrepreneur, what if any of those things are taken from you? Like you said, then my identity is gone. And it was an idea that then became my identity. And you have to find something, that identity space, that's deeper, larger meaning, larger purpose, larger calling, kind of the mountain worth climbing. And it's interesting. I think I've mentioned him on a previous podcast. And so at some point, this is just going to be me referring to this comedian whose lines I like. But there's a comedian out there, Jimmy Carr, who talks about life is not about the pursuit of happiness. It's the happiness in the pursuit. Because in this idea, it's going, when we pursue something, we never do it in a vacuum. There's always community, there's always people around, And so it's going, how am I including, how am I drawing in all of these things from all of these people? Because when you go back and talk to, you were a hockey player, we're talking about, Canada's Olympic team. Those guys may talk about that gold medal game. But if they're sitting around for the next 20 years and only talking about that, it's probably not from a healthy place. Most of them will be talking about their teammates and how much they miss practice and how much they miss the gym and how much they miss the plane and train and car rides together with these other people. It's all in that journey and in that pursuit. And if there's not enough of that purpose, there's not a big enough problem worth solving in that space. Like you said, people will then become complacent and they find new ideas to become their identity. And then they just jump from idea to idea to idea. In the same way we talk about like serial entrepreneurship is a really interesting concept. As long as, again, you're not changing your identity every time you pick up a new idea or a new company, because that's like actually insanely dangerous because
And expensive.
and expensive. Yeah. So as you're thinking through this and you come into the gym space and now you're helping these entrepreneurs, was there a big shift? Because you and I came across each other through a mutual friend when I think I was teaching to a mastermind or a group of people, and then you and I were connected. And then it was really funny when I then went and connected with you on socials, which admittedly I'm terrible at. It was fun. I had like 4 other friends who were not in that room who all followed you. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Matt is like got a reach. And then I go and watch. And you're doing the most horrific thing that I could possibly imagine. And I think it might be a Canadian disease that has been exported, because the only other person I know that does this with this regularity and commitment is also a lovely Canadian who was a client and now been a friend of mine for the last 5 years. And this is the art form and the torture that is cold plunging.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a thing that, you have used as a as a medium to tell a much more elevated, interesting story. Ice and cold plunging is interesting in and of itself, but I feel like you've masterfully used the function or the form of that to function as, hey, let's just have a coffee real quick while you're watching me do an insane thing that, Carl, you would never uh, comply to. I would never say, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I appreciate all the benefits. And every friend of mine who's gotten deeply into, like, Carl, it changed your life. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I've done it twice. I appreciate it. It changed my life for that day. And I love that for you. But how did you come into that space? And tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about how that kind of became a thing where you got to tell this more deep and interesting narrative to you.
First, yeah, I appreciate, want to share that you noticed what I'm doing. I mean, essentially, I'm sharing the cold plunge because it is captivating. Not that I'm a captivating person, but it piques
I would
interest,
disagree with that, but yes, it does both
right?
things. You are captivating in a torturous, captivating environment.
You're using the word curiosity. That's what all good storytellers do. They create a curiosity loop. So when I'm doing cold exposure, there's multiple curiosity loops happening that I'm thinking about. So I'm walking up with an axe to this tub that people who know, no one's who's seen my video before, like, what is this guy doing? I'm in shorts in winter.
Like, what are you doing,
Yeah,
Matt? Like, in what
exactly.
world is
So,
that the right idea?
and on social media, I mean, short form content is junk food. YouTube podcast is more of a good meal. Like, people are going to listen to this. They're ready. We don't have to hook people in really, kind of. But in short form, you have 3 seconds. If you don't capture someone's attention, they're going to move on. And at first, I didn't love that idea. But then if I realized that everyone else is playing this game, good content, bad content. So there could be eyes out there that are watching these let's say bad content because they can captivate them. So I need to play the game too. If I think I have something to share that could benefit someone. So curiosity loop, there's one. What's this guy wearing? What's he doing? Why is he walking up there? There's a text hook on there. That's the second part. There's a verbal hook, and then there's the visual hook. But all that to say, started it because I felt like I had something to share. I had truth to share that I think could benefit people. And I knew that it would take time, but just talking in front of the camera isn't anything different than everyone else what they're doing. So I said, okay, I need to do something different. At the time, I was doing cold exposure because I had basically burnt out as an entrepreneur, that whole identity piece again. And I developed chronic hives all over my body, went to the doctor, ER multiple times, emergency room multiple times because my chest was hurting. I had painful hives on my hands, my soles, my feet, all these different things. That there's probably multiple aspects to this, but it was almost a manifestation of burnout of these things. So I started doing these practices, eating better, spending more time in the Word and in the Bible, and then cold exposure. I found this can lower systemic inflammation. So I started doing that on my own, and there's a lot of other health benefits to it. At the same time, I thought I had ideas to share to people, but I was really scared. I was scared of what people would think of me sharing stuff. So at the time, I would create a post for social media. I'd read it through. I'd send it to my wife. She'd read it through. Like, yeah, Matt, you're good to post it. And then sometimes I wouldn't even post it because I was nervous of what people think. Did I say something wrong? How will they think of me? I'm thinking of that one person who might be judging me. So I made a commitment about 8 years ago. I'm going to post every single day. And one of those ways I'm going to post is in the cold tub because it's going to invite judgment. And it has, most definitely. It was my practice to overcome this fear. So over time, I got better at storytelling, understanding storytelling. And then I started to realize that if I truly am grounded in my identity in Christ, like if I don't need to prove anything to everyone, right? If I can't gain anything in terms of my salvation from this world, then what am I so afraid of? If someone says that, I don't know, people have said some really funny things. If someone says something mean to me, yes, I'm not going to say it doesn't cause me to pause for a second, but honestly, it's not as big a deal anymore because I have this practice field of purposely doing things that invite judgment.
Yeah. Well, and two, in that, I would imagine if you've been doing that for 8 years, I could only imagine the amount of messages people are sending you like, hey, the idea brought me some hope in some darkness, right? And for us to take 99 messages and then focus on the one we're like, hey, this is dumb and I don't think you should do this. By the way, I apologize for sending that message. I was in a bad place. I'm just kidding.
And I'm glad you said that, Carl, because I know I probably interrupt your flow there, but I think I've become desensitized a little bit to the good messages. And I think our brains work like that, right? We see danger, we see threats, and we see that first. But I probably, between comments and messages a day of good things that have changed people's lives, like someone a couple of years ago said, one of my videos saved their life, that they're thinking of doing something and change that trajectory, which is a massive deal. Like I get goosebumps thinking about that right now. But I think maybe I've become a little bit complacent or desensitized to the actual impact. Because for me on my side, I can't touch and feel that. I'm posting it and it's going out into this ether and people are seeing it, but I don't really understand what's happening on the other side. A lot of people watch, but don't say anything too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. I have this practice with executives that I coach that I call the 3 and 3 exercise. And part of this is exactly what you're talking about. So one of the cheats that I have is that I just have a brother who's a world-class functional neurologist. And so he's told me all about how my brain and all the brains work. And he's like, part of this is, as you're talking about, our fight, flight, or freeze, our survival mechanisms. The brain is a supercomputer and can go to pain astronomically faster than pleasure. This is why the one bad comment will outweigh the 99 good, because our brain is just cataloging, is there danger there? Like, am I under threat? And so because of that, one of the things that I'll do with executives is I'm telling them, hey, you guys are getting W's all the time that you're never cataloging. But you will have entire retreats over the L's that you or the team or the company or the P&L are taking. And so one of the first things I tell them is, take a book, kind of like something actually tactile that you can use. And then at the end of every day, so if you wrap up your day at 5, at 4:45, you set a meeting with yourself for 15 minutes and you catalog 3 wins from the day. And it could be something as small as, man, I had the world's greatest sandwich at lunch, to, oh my gosh, somebody told me that they were going to take their life and didn't. So something from the minute to the miraculous. And then what happens is I tell them, do that every day for 30 days and then give yourself an hour at the end of that month. And now you will have 90 wins. And you just sit in the presence of that and just read it and consume it. And the beauty of that is it is never intended to be congratulatory or like self, aggrandizing. The idea is going, all of those wins required somebody else. It required your wife to go, nope, that's a good one, and she encouraged me. It required an idea from somebody else to post in this way. It required somebody else who helped you learn and sharpen your storytelling skills. And in the words of Snoop Dogg, I'd also like to thank me. Like, I'm the person who went to the studio. I'm the person who did the thing. I'm the person who said yes. And so it's never either or, it's both and. It's this partnership. And so those moments of now 90 wins is a celebration of community. I said yes and other people said yes. And look at this good quest we went on. And we scaled some part of the mountain. And the fun was in the scaling, not in the arriving. And so, yeah, I mean, if you feel like in this season, maybe there's a little bit of that, it could be fun even to have your wife or a friend go back and be like, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you go grab 30 positive comments from the last month and just put them in a note somewhere, even if it's just screenshots? And one day, just for 4 minutes, I'm not going to look at my post or how it performed. I'm just going to look at comments. And hey, look at all the wins that this work is getting. Because we have to remind our survival brain, because our brain is actually a little bit of a jerk. Because our brain is a supercomputer only wired for one thing, which is our survival. It's not for thriving. It's not for advancement. It's not for anything else. Just keep Matt or Carl alive. And so these moments where we get to go like, hey, the CEO is going to say this part is important and celebration is important because you cultivate what you celebrate. And so these are moments for that. So you've got a lot worth celebrating.
I agree. Well said.
So the other question in this space of hopefully good and better questions is, success is really expensive. Like, you've succeeded at something that the bill would be too high for me. Like I can't, as a South African, the idea of walking out with an axe or a hammer and breaking ice on the top of this thing, that's a bill too high for Carl to pay. Now, you put me in a sauna, and maybe there's a sauna craze in the future, and I can be in there and tell my story there. But the success of that, the bill would have been too high. And obviously, I'm making jokes here because I know how beneficial it is. But if we pull that out a little bit, you and I are fortunate enough to be around like probably really successful people in most people's eyes, whether it's the bank account or the fitness or the family or the business. And the question I like to ask, and so I'd love to ask you, Matt, is as you look at any and all successes up until this point in your life, and if you got to go back and go, oh, I can now in hindsight calculate the cost. Is there a cost that in this season that is maybe surprising to you? And would you pay it again?
To make sure I understood the question. So I'm looking back at things that I have done in quote unquote investing, because we're talking about costs. So investing to
Yeah.
reach a certain amount of success. That if I look back at the byproduct, if I look to now, the byproduct of that investment, would I do it again? Is that the question?
It's a great summary. Yes, sir.
I think this is actually a big part of my program is people talk about habits, and I call them deposits. And the reason I call them deposits is because every time you invest in something or don't invest in something, right? So inaction is still a habit, right? I can't say that if I don't work out today, it's actually still a habit. I'm still making an investment or what I would call withdrawal
Mhm.
from my fitness account. So I look at these habits as investments into your future self. So the reason many people fail to achieve quote unquote success in their minds, which I would reframe to reaching their goals they set for themselves, whether that's in their fitness, whether that's in their business, is because they lack the ability for delayed gratification. So I really dislike cold exposure. I really dislike it. But based on patterns, based on what I know is true, I know it's good for me to an extent. And I know posting to social media consistently will lead to something. So all I had to do in that moment is decide that if I'm consistent with this action, there's going to be an outcome from it. I don't know exactly what that looks like. So example, I didn't know that one of my videos sharing the gospel would get 10 million views almost. I had no clue.
Mhm.
That was my expectation. I might not commit to the habit, but I know that the habit itself, the investment towards the quote unquote success, whatever area of life and mental, physical, spiritual, relational, professional, these 5 areas I talk about often, when you make that investment, it's going to equate to something because you're either moving towards sickness or fitness in these areas. Now, we're all moving towards sickness in some way, shape, or form. We're all aging. Death is inevitable, but I can prolong that. I can delay that, right? So I'm married. I've been married for 14 years.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think this is a good example. Like, let's say success in a marriage, let's define it as being really close friends and caring more about the other person than you care about yourself and being sacrificial like Christ was for the church. That's the definition of success. But what we can do, the moment I said I do, I could lock that in as, okay, I'm secure, I'm safe. And I could not talk to my wife every single day in deep, meaningful conversation. And I'm far from perfect at this. I could not get her gifts anymore. I could not go on dates anymore because I'm quote unquote safe. There's a commitment. Nothing's going to separate this. Although that's true, and I believe in that commitment, that covenant, what will happen is there will be a debt that is due and they'll come up in a way of becoming like roommates to each other. So
Mhm.
one day you'll both look up and be like, we feel really disconnected. And you'll try to point at every reason why. And maybe it's like we had an argument yesterday, or maybe this happened in our life. But in reality, it's every failed investment from the past. So the
Mhm.
byproduct of failed investments into your fitness from the past equates to achy joints, poor sleep, mental clutteredness, chronic diseases. Like these all begin to develop into something, manifest into something in the future. So all this to say, I know I'm getting long-winded in my answer to this, but I don't think I would change any of my investments because I don't directly tie outcome to one investment. It's multiple deposits you're making. And if you are living, so I'm trying my best to live into the day. So all I need to do is make the deposits I know I need to make in every area of life, and the outcome will be the outcome. And find enjoyment and fulfillment, joy and fulfillment in the today. And whatever the cost is, and if the cost is me sitting in cold exposure to get attention, but that actually helps save someone's life or that helped build my
Yeah.
program, because my whole coaching program is built off of me sitting in the ice tub. That's my livelihood, which is really cool to think about.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, and what I love about this is there's in at Curiosity with leaders, we talk about all leadership boils down to three things. I mean, it's a billion-dollar industry. You go down to your local Barnes and Noble, you can buy 400 books on leadership in a blink of an eye and spend all this money. But it really comes down to three things. What problem are you willing to give your most expensive resource to, which is actually not time, it's attention. And so what problem is worth giving your attention to? And then what solutions are worth giving your intention to? And then finally, what result or preferred future would you give your commitment to? And what I love about your answer is there's just such a deep sense of attention to a problem worth fixing, which is I didn't just get married. I want to be married to my best friend until we're both not alive. And I was teaching at the University of Georgia last week. And so I had a bunch of, young 20 somethings in there. And I was telling them, I was like, listen, the piece of advice I'm about to give you will make you a ton of money in the marketplace. It
Hmm.
will also make sure that you're married to your best friend 20 years from now, because I like my wife more today than I did the day we met. And I liked her a lot then. And this is not because I'm a guru. It's not because, like you said, I do everything right. It is singularly because I have become a student of my wife. I am constantly being surprised by this woman. I've made the commitment that I will give her my attention, and that the problem is not her being the same person, and that's a problem. The problem is that I don't view her as interesting, and so I'm going to consistently remain curious because that's the problem we're solving. The muscle of my curiosity about this person fading would be the problem, because even genetically and biologically, we're a different person every 7 years at a molecular level. And so we change so much in the course of you being married now for 14 years. You've been married to two different women. You're moved on to the third one. She's changed like at a genetic level twice already. And so this ability to maintain attention to the right problem and then intention to solutions that will move us towards that curiosity, and then a commitment to say, my preferred future is that I will die married to the most interesting version of this woman that ever existed, but not because she changed dramatically, because she will, but because I maintained a level of attention that goes, man, you are funnier now, you're more intelligent now, all of which is true, but I could have missed it just because I wasn't giving it my attention. So I love the level of attention that you're giving in these five spaces in life, professionally, physically, spiritually, in the relationships. I mean, just incredible. So with that, and this kind of gets us to I think what might be our last question is, what was the question that sparked this journey? So typically what we're asking people is, hey, what's the last great question that changed your life? And maybe for some people, it's the first one that pops to mind is like, oh, like somebody asked me to get married, or somebody asked me if I'd join this company. I would just be interested for you, like, what's one great question that kind of changed everything for you and set you on this path?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Which, by the way, for people who are listening while Matt collects his thoughts on that, is always the marker, by the way, of a good question. If you're wondering if you're good at being curious or asking a better question, you don't ever have to wonder. Two things will always happen with a great
That's a good
question.
question.
One, people will self-qualify it and they will say out loud all the time, that's a good question. The other one is people will go, if people can respond with one word or two syllables, it's probably not yet a great question. If people have to pause and actually consume it, you've moved from a Cheeto to a steak. And what we want is people to be able to chew on something and enjoy it. And so I appreciate Matt taking the time to think through what's a question that you think is a great question that was asked of you that may have changed everything for you?
I think it's 3 letters, 1 syllable, why. And
Yeah.
it's a repeating question. And the reason I say that, because you guys have listened to this whole podcast now, maybe you skipped ahead, maybe not, but is why was I pursuing hockey as a career? Why did I pursue being a gym owner? Why did my wife pursue fitness the way she did? Why was I being competitive in CrossFit? Why coaching men now? Why was I coaching business before? Why am I on this podcast right now? And this sounds very, what's the word? Very deep. But I guess the question behind the question is understanding myself is needing to ask why do anything and not to get in your head completely every single day. But here's an example. I invested in a retreat property. Actually, our common friend was there. It was beautiful a couple years ago. Amazing place. And way long ago, written a vivid vision for myself. I said, I'm going to own a retreat property that can help people. And this opportunity came up. We partnered on the deal. And in the back of my mind, I felt like maybe it wasn't a good time, but I forced it a little bit. And now I look back and we basically sold for a wash because I can quickly make decisions now based on time, money, energy. It was taking a lot of my mental energy. It wasn't worth my time in terms of the mental energy it was taking. But I got into it out of pride, out of ego. I wanted to say I had a retreat property. I wasn't stewarding what I had. So if I had really stopped and asked myself, or even had wise counsel around me and say, I need you to ask me why I'm doing this. And if it doesn't pass this test, I'm not going to do it. So everything we do, everything we pursue, and I'll go back to the beginning of this conversation where I invested in things out of my own selfishness a lot of the time, right? I wanted to be quote unquote successful. I wanted to be competitive. I wanted to be approved of, or was preventing me from posting, right? So I need to ask myself, why am I not, or why am I wanting to do this? And if I can't answer it in a way that I know that whether it succeeds or fails, I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to find joy. I'm still going to love my wife, my kids, the same amount as I am today. And I don't mean in emotion, I mean in action. Then it's probably not a good thing for me to do because it's taking me away from who I am. So I think if you need to ask yourself, and that was the question was the why question is ask yourself why often, because even in talking about this, I've had multiple different offerings. We talked about my offering when we connected many years ago. And I felt my offering I currently have was too deep and cerebral to create a product around and make money on. So I went to a different avenue. I said, I'm going to coach people in just business, which I can do, but it didn't align with my brand. So then I feel like God kept pulling me back and like, no, just push this offer out there. So I put the Man on Mission offer out there and I had the best month I've ever had in my business ever because it aligned with who I am. I enjoy philosophical ideas. I enjoy deep conversation. I enjoy talking about Jesus. I enjoy business. I enjoy holistic success, mental, physical, spiritual, relational, professional. And I just leaned into it. And I stopped putting my intent on, so the why was I need to do something to make a lot of money to make up for everything we've lost. Instead of saying, I'm going to do this thing because I feel like it aligns with how God's designed me. And then I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. Because that's something I also teach now is if you are good at something, ikigai, you're good at it, the world needs it, you get paid for it, you love doing it, that center point is a sweet spot. Imagine if we all did that. Imagine if we just forgot about the money for a second and we had the ability to just invest in that for a couple of years. What does that look like in 10, 20, 30 years? The money will be exponential, but you are no longer trying to escape your vocation because you're wearing golden handcuffs by buying consumeristic things because you enjoy what you do. And it's just a byproduct of how you like to spend your time, because that's exactly almost where I am right now. I get to have conversations with driven business owners to help them align their personal and business life and talk about God and help them scale their business and drink coffee. So why? That's the question.
Pretty good gig, man. Yeah, I love that. In that space, somebody's wrestling with, maybe many whys. One of the things that might be helpful to kind of simplify that big, big question, because it's what you did in your space as well. So just to give them handles, is the follow up thing is, what problem do I want to be known for solving in this space? Because, like you said, had you been asked that around the retreat center, you're like, I really want to help people. And you're like, is that the real problem? Well, if I'm honest with my circle of friends, I really want to be known as the guy who owns the center, or I really want to make money off the center. Like, well, that's fine. As long as you can you get excited about that every morning? Can you drive towards that? Can you make that successful with that why? And I think for all of us, it's asking the questions of, in this moment, in this week, in this quarter, in this year, is there a problem worth solving that I can zone in and hone in on enough that it will give me energy for the thing? Because you and I both know people don't typically burn out because they're doing the wrong thing. Or people don't typically burn out because they're doing too much. It's that they're doing too much of the wrong thing. Because you and I could probably be on calls and in meetings and hanging out with people around this conversation for 8 hours and not feel it, because we're doing that ikigai centered thing. I'm good at it. The world needs it. I enjoy it, and it is a vocation. But if you switch that thing to something else, you're like, I don't know that I can stand 8 minutes of this. And so, is it that overlap of those things? What a great question. And we would talk about, you see it modeled here by Matt. The most important question is the next one. So you asked one, and then another why, and then another why. So it solves this problem. What's the deeper problem of that you would love to be known for solving in this day or this week or this season? So, Matt, if there are people listening or watching, and I'm sure that they are interested, what's the best way to kind of go, oh, I need some Matt in my life? What's the best way for them to kind of engage in the work that you're doing?
Social media and YouTube are my biggest platforms I post on right now. So Matt Chenard on both of those. But if you're interested and you need help in anything I just shared, then there's a link to apply for my program. I open the doors up periodically, and you need to be on the list to know when that happens. And that's where it is. I'm currently creating a landing page right now, but it's not ready. So the application form is where to go to right now.
Amazing. And if somebody goes and applies and they're kind of on the waiting list and they kind of get in, what's the thing you're kind of promising? What's the problem that you're like, hey, this is the thing we kind of want to be known for helping fix in your world?
Yeah, I help Christian men build unbreakable discipline and steadfast emotional resilience using my Mission 5 framework in 9 weeks so that they can become a hero at home, strengthen their marriage, get in great physical shape, deepen their relationship with the Lord, all while scaling their business and gaining back time.
Just those little things.
Just those little things.
Yeah,
easy peasy. Yeah,
easy
I should say.
peasy.
That's why I lead with this first part. You build the unbreakable discipline so you can take consistent action so that eventually these things happen. I'm not promising the big shifts right in 9 weeks.
And I know you're not. So that's why I wanted to, make sure that we're illuminating that. But I mean, what terrific work, Matt, for the world of you and the work that you're doing out in the world. And so thanks so much for being on the podcast. Appreciate you asking and answering some big questions.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate you.
All right. Cheers, everybody.